And the real challenge is to find ways to make biofuels and to grow biofuels that do not lead to these deep displacement effects. That is the challenge. And if you do not do anything about the current practice of the way we're growing biofuels, then that change will just not happen. Thank you.
Thomas Gameson, would you like to come in on this point about ILUC?
Thanks, Jennifer. I think Raffaello's observation is absolutely right. I was listening to a debate on this subject yesterday in which Bas Eickhout of the Green Party was making the point that if you think about the kinds of unconventional oils that are coming onto the market today, they also have indirect effect as well as direct effects. Perhaps 40,000 hectares of forest in Canada, which the European Parliament have gone off to see being destroyed for the production of tar sands, is just one such of those effects. They should be taken into account in all this analysis. I'd just like to point out one other. I've got here a couple of sachets of sugar. Now, one of them, let's suppose, is going to go into fuel production, and the other one's going to be eaten. They're exactly identical, not just the sachets, but the sugar that's inside them as well. But there is a difference, because one of them, because it's going into the fuel market, has got a sustainability certificate with it, which means that it's also going to be have been produced with the assurance that it doesn't destroy directly some high carbon stock land. The other one, for the food, well, we can't say anything about that at all. We don't know whether it's been used for that purpose one way or the other. Exactly the same product, exactly the same. And we have sustainability requirements for one, but we don't have for the other. If we had sustainability requirements for the food production, what then would be the ILUC effect for biofuels? It wouldn't be so good for the wheat ethanol that I showed you before, because we wouldn't have so much damage of high conservation land. Thank you.
Just a one-sentence response from Jos.
I would like to point to one very important difference between the two sugars. For one, we have a mandate. For the other, we don't. So if we didn't have a mandate to use the energy, the fuel form of sugar, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Now, we're not purely here to have a debate about ILUC, although that is a big part of the subject. But Hans, could I ask you to pick up the question on biogas? Why are we not having more discussion of biogas?
Well, we would like to have more discussion about biogas because we like biogas. It's truly a renewable energy source as long as it comes from the biodegradable fraction of waste. It's something that really is out there. We avoid this whole difficult discussion about land use. So we're all for it. And in fact, I think we do encourage member states to do it in the sense that this will count towards the target. If it's used in the transport side, it will count towards the 10%. It will also count towards the 20%. So there is incentives in place. It may well be we need more, and we will be happy to look at that. So we have absolutely no issue with biogas. We think it's something that really has to form a key role and play a key role in this whole operation, and it has a big potential. Can I just, while I'm having the floor, mention one thing which is a little bit of a concern, which is we're talking about biofuels, but in reality, and I think Jos said bioenergy, which of course is a different thing in the sense that that includes biomass. Biomass is the critical renewable energy source to meet our 20% target. It today is more than half. It will in 2020 be around half of the effort which is needed to meet our 20% target. Of course, not all biomass is requiring land because it also includes wastes and residues and things like that, but a lot of it does. And there is an issue here that we are talking about the 10% target, but we're also talking to some extent about the 20% target. And that is something that we should not forget, that if we somehow come to a conclusion that there's a lot of trouble with biofuels, it's hard to see how we wouldn't come to the same conclusion that there's also a lot of trouble about biomass. And if that's the case, then we are coming close to saying, so what about the 20%? Is that still something that we can achieve if we are effectively saying that there is a problem with biomass? And that is a concern to us, and that's why we think it's important to keep the biofuels perspective, or to keep the biofuels debate in perspective.
Thank you. Jeremy Woods, would you like to respond to anything you've heard so far?
Yes, I guess I'm the academic, so I would say that it's complicated, wouldn't I? But the issue, for example, of waste was one that we looked at in a study commissioned by the UK Renewable Fuels Agency, and it again is one where the impacts of substituting one thing for another thing, where sometimes they really are wastes. For example, I looked at the use of molasses from any form of sugar production, but in this case sugarcane production, and would the UK biofuels, would the UK renewable transport fuels obligation result in an increased demand of molasses as this co-product or waste product or byproduct of sugarcane? And if it did, what were the existing uses of that molasses? And it turned out that there were multiple uses, and the same thing is also for tallow oil. And when you try to account for what would then replace the thing that you're then using, let's say it's tallow going to biodiesel, whereas tallow goes both into the oleochemical industry but also as an energy feedstock in the oleochemical industry. Let's say you ended up replacing that tallow that's providing the energy for the oleochemical industry with coal, you'll have a very substantial poor impact, negative impact on greenhouse gas emissions. And so these interactions and interchanges in the demand for these feedstocks are really very difficult to work through, and we concluded actually that you probably shouldn't have double accounting or double rewards for certain feedstocks because of that issue and that complexity. That report is available on the internet from the Renewable Fuels Agency website, and if you're interested in these interactions, it's worth pulling out. The issue with biogas is also an interesting one. I'm a strong supporter of biogas because I think it allows us to look at ways to recycle nutrients and to manage other issues on the land. With regard to biogas for transport, I think the reason that it's not looked at so much as the other alternatives, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be, in particular biofuels, is it depends who pays the price in the end. So if you want to expand biogas quite substantially, then you have to retrofit vehicle engines in order to take that biogas, as compared to other uses like upgrading the biogas and putting it into the gas grid, etc., and making electricity or heat directly from the biogas. So
okay, let's take some more questions from the floor. Yes, the gentleman with the green tie.
Thank you. My name is Marco Salvini. I'm the head of Energy Sustainable Development of the Mission of Brazil. And well, according to our experience, almost 40 years of biofuel production, we think that biofuels are a very, very efficient solution to decarbonizing the transport sector. But my comment would be on ILUC. Since the ILUC at the end is a discussion of preventing deforestation, and it is also a question of preventing the conversion of high value, high carbon value stocks of biomass. So, and since Brazil has the largest rainforest in the world, we think we should be heard in this issue, simply because on ILUC we do not agree when people put the blame on ILUC from biofuels for the deforestation of rainforests, at least in Brazil, because it's simply not true. We have all the data, our comments to the public consultation are on the website of the DG Energy, all the data are there. But we also don't agree when people use the name of the rainforest to have a positive account or a better performance of no matter what feedstock, simply because for us the question of the rainforest is a question of direct land use change. And in Brazil, we had, in the last 6 years, 80% of decrease in the deforestation rate of the Amazon rainforest. We are very well on track to fulfill our commitments to the convention of the climate change convention. And if we get to, then I get to my point, if we get to, in 2020, to 0% the illegal deforestation in Brazil, how do you explain that there is no sense to the ILUC debate? Simply that there is no sense, because if you don't have deforestation, you cannot put the blame on biofuels or whatever. And since our public policies are working very well on the question of deforestation.
Okay,
my point is exactly my question.
I think it's come across clearly. Can I take an intervention from the gentleman next to you, please?
Thank you. My name is Kåre Riis Nielsen from Novozymes, the global leader in bioinnovation. I have a short comment also related to your point, Jennifer, about the dynamic between science and policy, because I have a positive story that actually second generation or next generation is now ready and available. Actually, in Denmark, you can pump your car in 100 filling stations by second generation biofuel. Yet what we are seeing is that globally, and we are a global company, that US and China is taking the lead, whereas Europe is lagging behind. Why is that? It's because of the Renewable Energy Directive is not having strong enough incentives for second generation biofuels. It's true, as Hans was saying, there is a double counting element, but I can just say that because of the price difference right now from first generation and an immature second generation technology, is too big, it doesn't make a difference with the double counting.
Okay, thank you.
And let me just finish on that.
It's a point clearly made, but I'd like to take in another intervention here. Yes.
Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Marco Sorgetti. I'm the director of CLECAT. We represent logistics and freight forwarding activities. So basically, we look at freight more than anything else. But the issue is, of course, more expanded than that. Our way of looking at this is fairly simple in as much as